We all know Flying Cat is one of the most unfortunate unit types in the entire game due to his low range and HP despite his high DPS, though I really don't see it in that way, especially when you take a look at his family or variants. Most of them are actually pretty good at what they're going for when you use them correctly, as unlike a lot of other units, Flying is more of a hard to use unit rather than a straight up bad one. Low Flying. Low Flying has always been seen as a great cat against zombies due to his strong against ability, mostly once he's boosted, and honestly, he's probably the best flying variant. At his maximum abilities, talents and all, against relics and zombies, he'd have 59k HP or 14k HP per his 4 knockbacks and a staggering 13k area attacking DPS. Coupled with his low recharge rate, it's clear as to why Low Flying's known for being great, though his low range of 170 is still an issue. A lot of zombies are stat-based melee units, so fighting them is okay or great most of the time, but because of their ability to burrow, they could possibly attack and juggle Low Flying due to his high KB count, especially if you're fighting a unit like Z Kraka who cuts in close. Plus, we also have to consider the fact that there can be units of other types, which against him at maximum abilities can only have 29.5k HP or pathetic 7.3k HP per his 4 knockbacks, and 9k DPS. Despite his high DPS, his low HP makes it way more likely that he'd get wrecked before that DPS can actually be a factor in generalist situations. We aren't even considering relics right now. For him to fight them, you would have to buy the relic targeting talent and a curse immunity for a total of 150 NP, and even then the only relics he could outrange would be Surreal, Old Horn, Relic Doge, and Primeval Cyclone, and he could possibly get some damage off if he can get into Loris's blind spot. Though unboosted, they do 6k damage per hit. Low Flying's honestly one of the most extreme units in Battle Cats when it comes to his performance. Are you fighting melee zombies and or relics, and maybe other traits with low range, then he's really good. If not, then choose someone else unless you can get a solid freezing strategy going against zombies and relics. As for units that can outperform him niche-wise, even for 4-star stages, there are quite a few. For one, you have to do a lot of boosting and investing before you can get Low Flying to a nice usable level. For his total max, you'd have to spend 25 special cat's eyes, pull him 60 times, and beat 4 11-star stages, and that's just for his levels. For all of his talents at max, that's 540 NP. Compare this to the solid anti-zombie units that are also usable in 4-star like Chief and Cadaver. Where Low Flying beats him in HP, they beat him in either range, damage output, or other factors like Chief's Soul Strike and Miniwave or Cadaver's lower cost. It's easier to assume that you'd get these units and buff them before Low Flying because it's less expensive, and even for relics, Low Flying loses out. Crossix's true form, Royal Guard with his natural 8k DPS, massive damage for relics and aliens, lower cost, and natural wave and curse immunity also outclass Low Flying majorly. Low Flying's outclassed by this point, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean he sucks. Outside these units, he can do great, but that assumes that you invest in him a lot, when you kind of don't need to, even when it comes to 4-star stages. Personally, I think he's slightly overrated nowadays, but he still has his place as a, when boosted, strong anti-zombie melee unit. Flying. With 170 range, 26.7k HP at max, and 4 knockbacks, which cuts his HP per KB to 6.6k, his high DPS of 7.7k, and ability to use area attack makes him one of the least useful and most outclassed cats within all of Battle Cats. Even when he's first introduced, there's little reason to use him over cats you've already unlocked from either the gacha or purchasable specials. Couple this with when you'd get his true form, you realize that it'd be nonsensical to use this guy at the start of Stories of Legends, and his worthless ability to, at a low 20% chance, apply a 50% weaken on angels of all things definitely doesn't help. In comparison to other flying variants, there's no reason to use this normal counterpart. Manic has better range, and a slightly lower DPS and HP doesn't affect much. Lil has powerful talents which strong against zombies and relics, and Brainwashed Flying has massive damage against traitless, surge immunity, and mini-wave ability. If you want to though, you can still use him for specific scenarios. Against enemies with low range, it'd be pretty easy to melt them with help from a unit or units that can freeze whoever you're trying to destroy because of his spammability and high 7.7k DPS. All you need is some cash and freeze up combos, and you can pretty much melt anything. It's a strategy you can employ that's risky and sometimes of high reward, and by the time you get his true form and onward, I think this is the most effective way to use him. Though a lot of the time it requires a stage with low density or not many different traits, as you might have to bring a few different freezers just to do this, so it's probably not the best thing, and also the other flying variants depending on what you're fighting will probably be more effective. It's still a pretty fun and effective strategy if it works, though again, you could do the same with Manic, and especially with his attack up M combo, this would work better. Outside of him being used as a unit, his cat combos are actually alright. Massive damage with Crazy UFO and his attack up M combo could help shred enemies of specific traits even better. While I don't think Flying is a bad cat like Dark for example, there's gotta be little to no reason to replace any of your cats in most stages with him, unless you're using the strategy that fully revolves around him. Manic Flying. Manic Flying's kind of underrated. With 225 range and 21k HP or 5.2k HP per 4k Bs and 7.1k DPS at level 50, he seems to be basically the same as Flying, though the range difference is actually pretty notable. It means that if you try the aforementioned strategy where you just freeze all the enemies in front of you, and then wipe with Manic Flying, it'd be safer than just using normal Flying, and the amount of DPS you could do would basically be the same. He's also almost a mid-ranger, as he has 75 range less than Cameraman. Manic Flying still isn't an amazing unit or anything, as he shares most of the issues Flying already has, like him being pretty replaceable outside of his great cat combos, but if he's usable on any sort of stage, then he'll certainly help a lot thanks to his high DPS. Brainwashed Flying. Similar to my video on Dark's family, I don't have his true form, but unlike that video, I do have the actual unit, and all his true form does is allow him to slow at a 100% chance for 2 seconds. Slow over freezing is pretty strange, because if the traitless enemy already outranges him, even slightly, he's gonna take on that full damage. Brainwashed Flying's best traits though are his massive damage against traitless enemies and his immunity to both waves and surges. It allows him to close in on waving traitless enemies like Cory or Dober PB, though the surge immunity isn't as great as there aren't many traitless enemies that can use surges, and using him against Aku enemies makes no sense because of his low natural DPS of 3.4k at level 30, and his crappy range of 205. This cat's only real saving grace is the fact that he's a gotcha unit, so you could possibly get him at any time in the game, and having a nuker against traitless enemies before time of beating Empire Cats chapter 3 for example could be monumental in your progress. This assumes that you get him early though, and by the time you get his true form, there's no way you wouldn't have someone like Teacher Bear Cat, a cat that can do 40k damage per hit versus traitless at just level 30 with area attack. Despite Bearcat's lower range of 140, this possible burst damage is better than hoping to make a stack of brainwashed UFOs, or Flyings, so you can shred your traitless adversaries. Unlike the rest of his family, who are all also flawed for similar reasons, Brainwash has the biggest issue of having naturally low DPS. If he's not fighting traitless, then you'll only be doing 3.4k DPS with him, and as a unit with 13.2k HP at level 30, you start seeing the problem. He doesn't have what every other flying unit has, which is high damage for general scenarios or high damage still in general scenarios and especially against certain types. All he has is MDV traitless. I'm not saying that he can't be useful. I mean, if you get a few in a blind spot of an enemy like Delphina, she's going down. But what I am saying is that outside of things like that, there's no reason to use Brainwashed Flying. Even if you want to use him on wave heavy stages, those don't always just have Cory on them. So all you'd be getting is 205 range, low DPS, and 13.2k HP against like a Berserk Cory for the cost of 975C. Why would you not use, I don't know, Talented Dancer, a Wave Blocker, or anything aside from this unit? But let's say we give him his maximum abilities. At 50 plus 70, that would mean he'd do effectively 63 damage per hit, which is more than Bearcat and 33k DPS, or a natural 8.4k DPS against any enemy and 15k damage per hit. Offensively, this is insane, though his HP is still a bit lackluster at 32k or 8.1k HP per 4k Bs. These stats are great, but the likelihood of someone legitimately pulling Brainwashed Birdcat 70 times is ludicrous to even consider. It'd be more insane than pulling the same Uber 10 times in one Uberfest or even in multiple. And besides, if we get rid of that plus 70 and just give him 25 super rare cat's eyes, he'd only do 10.2k damage per hit or 5.4k DPS naturally. And against traitless, he'd have 21.6k DPS and a health of 21k or 5.2k HP per KB. The damage against traitless is great and his natural DPS becomes a nice bit better, but it still makes us ask, why not use Teacher Bear instead by this point? The damage and DPS aren't so good to where it outclass him like Brainwash with 50 plus 70, and he still has massive range problems, unless you use a freezing strategy like how you would for other variants of flying. Conclusion. It sounds a lot like I hate Flying Cat, but I really don't. They're sort of fun to use, honestly, despite being difficult to use. And it's because of Manic, Brainwash, and normal Flying Cat's extreme weaknesses, you have to orient your entire setup to be based around freezing to use them. And if there's an LD unit or someone that outranges everyone, then you're as good as done. Before we close out, here's a verse from the Bible. John 7:17. Anyone who wants to do the will of God will know whether my teaching is from God or merely my own. Be sure to have a great day, everyone. Subscribe, like, comment, watch all my videos, and goodbye.